United States and countries around the world to the Public-Private Partnership Security and Resilience Seminar Series, Session 4. This is the second installment following Session 3's presentation, Safely Leveraging Artificial Intelligence in the Workplace. Today, we will follow up by exploring the challenges, hidden dangers, and managerial risks associated with integrating AI, emphasizing the importance of ethical, secure, and effective implementation. My name is Kenya Cummins, Communication Specialist for G&H International Services Incorporated, and a proud member of the Public-Private Partnership Security and Resilience Seminar Series Planning Team. Before we begin today, we want to acknowledge our colleagues, both in government, the private sector, nonprofit organizations, as well as friends and family that are waking up to a natural disaster unfolding in Florida this morning due to the impacts of Hurricane Milton, as well as ongoing recovery efforts going on in multiple states in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Our thoughts and our hearts are with you. We know everyone there will have to endure some long days, and we pray for their safety and a rapid recovery. The series goals are to provide business owners and operators with best practices, planning resources, and tools for security and resilience. Today's session is sponsored by the Idaho Office of Emergency Management in partnership with G&H International Services Incorporated, the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, and Albertsons Companies. This session is being brought to you as part of the Public-Private Partnership Platform, also known as P4. P4 serves as a one-stop shop for private sector partners to engage, collaborate, and communicate with the program managers in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska. Additionally, with the support of DHS S&T and its partner CUSEC, G&H International Services is finalizing development of the Community Lifeline Status System, or CLSS, a no-cost tool to operationalize FEMA's Community Lifeline construct that will be made available nationwide to state, local, tribal, and territorial governments in early 2025. Be sure to scan the QR code on the screen to register for the Back to Basics webinar on November 13th at noon Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, featuring FEMA Senior Policy Advisor Sean Roush and DHS Program Manager Ron Langhelm. For the next 90 minutes, our speakers will share the challenges, hidden dangers, and managerial risks associated with integrating AI, emphasizing the importance of ethical, secure, and effective implementation. In today's session, you will learn how to understand the risks of malicious AI by identifying and explaining the 3 tiers of malicious AI, including generative AI, adaptive malware, and nation-state AI use. You'll also learn how to recognize the potential impact of AI on cybersecurity by learning how AI is used in offensive and defensive cybersecurity operations, including the role of autonomous AI tools. You'll also identify key strategies for mitigating AI threats, gaining insights to the rules, policies, and guidelines necessary to mitigate misinformation, privacy, and security threats from malicious AI. And finally, today you will learn how to assess the implications of generative AI in workplace operations, exploring the evolving capabilities of generative AI in professional environments and its potential impact on job roles, decision-making, and trust. Before we begin, let's go over some quick housekeeping items. To ensure a smooth experience, we've muted all participant microphones to prevent disruptions and background noise. Please be sure to mute your microphone for the duration of the session. Due to the large audience today, and we're so glad to welcome you all, we won't have an open chat function. However, we will host a facilitated Q&A session at the end where our instructors and partners will address your questions. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions relevant to the topic, and we'll do our best to cover them all. If you encounter connectivity issues with Teams Live, please try reloading or restarting your application. At the end of the session, there will be an evaluation to gather your feedback, which is crucial to us for improving future sessions. Though we don't anticipate any interruptions today, in case of severe presenter connectivity issues, we'll either re-engage or move forward to the next agenda item promptly. After the session, you may complete the knowledge assessment for IASET CEUs. Additionally, recordings of all sessions will be available for playback at your convenience. As an IASET accredited provider, G&H is excited to provide IASET CEUs for this seminar series. In compliance with ONSI and IASET standards, to qualify for IASET CEUs, attendees must be present for the entire live session and achieve 70% or greater on the post-event knowledge assessment. If you have any questions about the IASET CEU process, please contact G&H at training@gnhinternational.com or 202-955-9505. Additional information about IASET or ONSI IASET standards is available by email at info@iaset.org or online at www.iaset.org. G&H proprietary interest policy requires instructors to disclose any vested interest in products or materials used in the learning event, including royalties or profits from endorsements. Contact G&H with concerns about policy compliance. G&H anti-discrimination policy ensures a learning environment free from sexual or any form of unlawful harassment or discrimination. Contact us directly with any concerns about policy breaches. G&H is eager to collaborate with you in continuing training and education with IASET CEUs. Our first speaker today is Sean McSpaden, a principal legislative IT analyst at the Oregon Legislative Fiscal Office. McSpaden has over 30 years of experience in IT across private, nonprofit, and public sectors. He previously served as the Deputy State Chief Information Officer for Oregon and currently oversees IT, GIS, cybersecurity, and AI projects for state agencies. Active in legislative committees, he is also a member of Oregon's Task Force on Artificial Intelligence and represents Oregon at the NCSL Task Force on AI, Cybersecurity, and Privacy. McSpaden holds an MBA and various certifications, including CISM and PMP. Please join me in welcoming Sean.
Well, thank you, Kenya. Can you hear me?
Yes, we could hear you, Sean.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's my great pleasure to be with you all today, and honored to have an opportunity to share my thoughts on AI in the public sector. My job is to kind of tee up the broader landscape that's occurring or is present across the country, and then we'll move into our subject matter experts who will bring it home for us. But Eric, why don't you go to the next slide? So I thought I'd give a quick kind of introduction or reintroduction to the topic. So we've seen generative AI evolving the way that government agencies are approaching service delivery, and certainly generative AI will change the way that we work, the way that we find information, the way that we communicate with one another. But the core question for all of us, regardless of the domain, is AI the answer to a better government experience for those that we serve? And from my perspective, I think before we can even get into that, we need to take a step back and answer that core question: just what is generative AI? Next slide. And this is where we begin to see some of this confusion in the market, because you have artificial intelligence as that kind of bigger or broader category. It's really been around for a very long time, for decades. And then we have generative artificial intelligence that's burst onto the scene just in the past year or so. But generative AI is really just a subset of that broader category. As you can see by the image on the screen, Gen AI builds on and leverages the capability of a whole spectrum of AI-enabled technologies to do its thing. And it's at the intersection of all of that that you begin to see the emergence of AI that's optimized to create based on training data that it's been exposed to. Now, what's unique about all of that is that generative AI is grounded in the premise of having a human in the loop, requiring a human to create. Next slide. So, of course, as I just mentioned, Gen AI is just a subset of that broader AI category. It's focused on the ability of that human in the loop to cause machines in one way or another to create outputs across various modalities. And that's why Gen AI can now do text and code and images and speech and video and 3D and all kinds of other things that we can't begin to imagine. Next slide. And AI is, of course, playing a big role now, and its use is evolving and will continue to evolve as the technology matures and as the trust and confidence in its use improves over time. Currently, we see many instances of the use of standalone AI with access via a website that you go to and a free or a paid service that you use to perform certain tasks. We're also seeing the expanded use of embedded AI within the office productivity tool suites that we all use in our daily work. Think about Microsoft Copilot or Google Assistant. To a lesser extent, but gaining in broader use, we see an increase in something called abstracted AI via edge device platforms like Siri or Google Assistant GPT. And of course, autonomous AI is slowly working its way into the computing environments within state and local government and education agencies across the country. Next slide. But it's important to remember that what we all see as the output of generative AI, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot that goes on below the waterline, so to speak, in the form of computing and AI infrastructure, cloud and data platforms, and large language models. Next slide. Now, whether any of us on this webinar like it or not, regardless of where you are on the fence with AI generally or with generative AI specifically, we know that agencies, that people within agencies, our employees, they're using it. They're bringing their own version into our environment. According to the 2024 Work Trend Index annual report from Microsoft and LinkedIn, AI is being woven into the workplace at an unexpected pace and scale. They estimate 75% of knowledge workers say that they're using AI at work today, with 46% of those users starting to use those kinds of tools just in the last 6 months. And again, it's important for all of us to recognize that people are bringing their own AI to work because many of our public sector organizations haven't yet deployed these kinds of generative AI tools broadly for our employees. So it really is an issue that we need to pay attention to. Next slide. And as we kind of step back and look at the landscape from 2023 with this data curated from the National Conference of State Legislatures, you can see that there was a lot of legislation on AI across the country. And for those states that didn't have legislation in 2023, those states really have ramped up their efforts in 2024. There's just been an explosion of legislation. Next slide. Here, very quickly, just giving a brief breakdown of the ways that AI was commonly being regulated across the country. Number one was just the creation of an AI task force or an advisory council or commission of some kind at the state level, followed by legislation that directed the adoption of AI policies and the direction to AI offices or to departments, the IT department within respective states or jurisdictions to guide, direct, and oversee the safe, secure, and transparent acquisition, deployment, and use of AI. Next slide. And as this slide indicates, during the 2024 legislative session held across the country and in the variety of states and territories, at least 45 states, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and also the District of Columbia, introduced over 400 AI-related bills. More states and territories also adopted resolutions or enacted further legislation or ordinances. Next slide. Now, this slide, I won't go into any detail in the interest of time, but this just gives you a brief breakdown of those 400 plus introduced bills by topic or category in 2024. Next slide. If we could back up one, thank you. Kind of drilling down on this this pot of 400 plus bills in 2024. As of July of this year, there were about 55 bills that had passed by that time. They primarily imposed restrictions or disclosure requirements on deepfakes in elections. That's really understandable. Of course, we have a national election coming up in November, but also imposed restrictions and disclosure requirements on explicit content. They also created a variety of new AI advisory councils, task forces, and working groups. Importantly, since that time, just in California alone, there were another 18 AI-related bills that passed the California legislature, and 17 of those 18, Governor Newsom just signed in the last 2 months. So, states really are moving on AI. This is going to continue to be a hot topic the remainder of this year into 2025 and beyond. And once all of this shakes out, it's going to be important for all of us in the public sector to track when these laws across the nation actually get implemented and how our existing policies related to data security, privacy, and the use of our data in AI solutions get updated for this new era of AI that we're all having to deal with. Next slide. Here, just very briefly, wanted to mention that Oregon has formed a joint legislative task force on AI. It was formed via House Bill 4153 that passed during the 2024 legislative session. Notably, this task force is narrowly focused on the foundational identification of key AI-related terms and definitions that might be used in future Oregon legislation. The goal here is really straightforward and simple. We need to make sure that all of us know what the AI words really mean and can consistently use and apply them moving forward. Next slide. Also wanted to mention that via Governor Kotek's Executive Order 2326, Oregon's executive branch is also focused on this issue with the formation of a multi-jurisdictional and multi-sector state government AI advisory council. This advisory council, it's met more than half a dozen times. It recently produced a draft set of recommendations. That document is now available for public comment. Next slide. Again, in the interest of time, I won't go into the detail here. This is going to be available for your viewing after the session, but there are, of course, many use cases for generative AI solutions in government operations, regardless of branch or public service program area. Next slide. And again, here, there are also, of course, many use cases of AI solutions in public safety and emergency management. I've just provided just a few, maybe a dozen or so examples here for you to think about. I'm sure all of you can think of and perhaps are already implementing AI and other use case scenarios in your own environments. Next slide. Again, popping up to that federal level, to that broader level across the country. As you may or may not know, in September of 2023, an online repository of over 700 use cases was published to highlight the federal government's use of AI to better serve the public across a wide variety of program areas, from agriculture to education, transportation to health and human services, energy and the environment to homeland security, and many others. Importantly, the 2024 AI use case inventory is either already underway or soon will be. The instructions to federal agencies have been published on ai.gov for their use. Again, if you have any interest, I'd encourage you to go to ai.gov to check out this current list of use cases and also the ones that in the future will be posted. Next slide. Again, I just wanted to convey the breadth of program areas and departments that are involved in this use case inventory that are utilizing AI. Next slide. And again, next slide. And next slide. Great. So coming back to the topic at hand, what's important to remember here is that AI today, which may feel like a separate product right now, it really isn't a separate product at all, certainly not anymore. If you think about the software as a service solutions that all of our organizations have deployed in the past or that we're considering for use in the near future, one of the primary benefits of deploying software as a service or SaaS solutions is that you, as the customer, get continuous access to any new features that are deployed in the future. Those new releases that the system owner or the vendor provides to us on a regular basis. In our view, it's going to be a near 100% certainty that AI will increasingly be embedded in these software as a service version updates, whether you know it or not, whether your agency explicitly asks for these AI capabilities or not. So you really need to be working with your procurement staff, with your legal staff to make sure that your current contracts incorporate AI-related provisions, that you have a notification obligation that you place on your vendors so that you're aware at least when these AI capabilities begin to crop up. They certainly will be a fundamental aspect of every product and service moving forward. It's certainly moving from hype to reality very, very quickly. Next slide. Now here, I won't go into each one of these questions, but the explosion of generative AI, it's just making us all hurriedly think about a whole bunch of things all at once. It's really overwhelming if you think about it. These are just some of the questions in one form or another that I believe every public, private, nonprofit sector organization across the nation certainly is beginning to ask themselves, and absolutely, these are the kinds of questions and likely a few others that we're going to all need to be able to answer in the near term. We can't avoid it. Next slide. And here, this is for your reading after the event, but there certainly are a whole host of ethical, functional, legal, and security and privacy risks that we all need to be aware of and that we need to begin mitigating. I think there certainly is going to be some changes that are needed in the way that we procure these kinds of technologies, how we disclose our use of AI to our constituents, and how we require our vendors to disclose their use of AI within the solutions they provide to us is going to be really important. We also need to make sure that we understand, as I mentioned earlier, that our users, our employees, are going to bring their own AI into the environment. So how do we appropriately begin to regulate that BYO AI, bring your own AI, within our computing environments in our public sector and private and nonprofit sector organizations? What are the rules of the road going to be? What are we going to allow and what are we going to prohibit? We really do have some hard choices to make and an ongoing discussion to have with our employees. We also need to think about how we're going to approach updating our acceptable use, our data classification and privacy policies. How are we using individual data responsibly? Even if I'm not dealing with personally identifiable information, but I'm bringing someone's information into an AI solution to train the system, do I need their consent? Do I need to disclose that? So a lot of questions that are going to have to be answered here. And then finally, we really need to think about the upskilling and reskilling and literacy and equity pieces for our employees as well. How do we ensure that we bring everyone along and make sure that the deployment of this kind of technology doesn't leave anyone behind? We're going to also need to make sure that we have a solid data foundation, because you can have the best AI solutions in the world, but if you don't have a good solid platform and foundation for your existing data, you're not going to get much value out of it. Just to provide the concept here, AI feeds on data. It's the gas in the car, so to speak. So if your applications are a mess and your data behind them is a mess, the output from these AI solutions is going to be a mess as well, and you're going to have a lot of hallucinations and biased outputs that lead to unintended consequences. Next slide. So here I've just provided a few additional thoughts on potential threats, concerns, and mitigations in the use of AI in the public sector. But again, in the interest of time, I won't go into any detail here. It'll be available to you. To be sure, malicious actors, they're creating their own AI modules, such as here, this example, Worm GPT, which is similar to ChatGPT, but specifically designed for malicious activities. Worm GPT has features like unlimited character support, chat memory retention, and code formatting capabilities. The tool was also trained on a diverse range of data sources with an emphasis on malware-related data. If that sounds bad, it really is. I know one of our other colleagues and speakers is going to go into this in his presentation, so I'll move to the next slide. And those technologies are being used against government today. Those emails with a bad grammar are now starting to look a lot better. The misspellings and errors have been created. So these phishing campaigns against the public sector and those in other sectors are becoming far more sophisticated all the way around. They're getting into deepfake audio, video, and other types of things that are meant to confuse us and get our employees to unwittingly, provide access to our systems. This is really going to change our approach to verification and validation of messages, of user identities, and our overall cybersecurity approach. Next slide. In closing, I'd like to ask you all to really think about this moment. Like Uber, when Uber was rolling out across the country, back when they were in the startup phase, it was very disruptive to all the regulatory agencies at the state and local government levels. We just didn't know where Uber fit. We didn't know what box to put Uber in. So some organizations, they ignored it, some banned it, while others embraced it and tried to find a way to study and analyze it and figure out if a new policy was required. Again, we believe this is an Uber moment for AI in public sector. A lot of the similar, concerns and approaches that are available to us are here. Frankly, banning it and restricting it, it's not going to accomplish what you think it may accomplish. Certainly, it's something that can't be ignored, at least not for very long. So we recommend that you lean in, you work with your employees, give them some rope to take the AI car out on the road, so to speak, to test out some of these solutions and to provide good advice, good learning back to your organization that you can apply in the future. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, for that thorough presentation. And before moving on, I want to remind our audience today that you are part of today's discussion. We encourage you to type your questions or comments using the Q&A function located on the top right-hand corner of your screen, and we will do our best to address your questions at the end of today's session. Our next speaker today is Andrew A. Bachman. As a senior grid strategist and infrastructure defender at the Idaho National Laboratory, or INL, Bachman provides strategic guidance on grid security and climate resilience to U.S. and international leaders. A frequent speaker and author, he published Countering Cyber Sabotage in 2021 and will release his second book, Defending Civilization, in 2025, addressing risks to electric grids and critical infrastructures. An Atlantic Council non-resident senior fellow, he has previously worked with the U.S. Air Force, IBM, and the Chertoff Group. Welcome, Andrew.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Kenya. Also, thanks to everybody in the Idaho team. And Sean, thanks for giving everybody such a sound primer on what is generative AI. So I can move right in, for better or worse, assuming that at least some of that knowledge for new people, some of those seeds have been planted. Another thing I might say on this opening slide is to coin the words of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. Although this won't be completely different, it's gonna be a bit different. And I hope that it works for you in some very positive ways. This title is a bit of a mouthful, and I sort of did it on purpose. I'm teeing up a boxing match of two extreme opinions held by lots of folks, but particularly some of the true subject matter experts in the generative AI space. And I've used this both as a moderator to tee up debates among other lab personnel in the DOE National Lab Complex, and elsewhere. So which way is AI going? Which way is generative AI going? Is it going to be super intelligent and it's going to help us populate the galaxy? I'm not kidding using those words. That's what some people think or want. Or is it the probability of doom? That's the way that's described in shorthand, being not 5% or 10%, doom for humans, by the way, but 100%. Which one of these is more likely, and where, if it does fall in between, where and when will it fall? Next slide, please. Let's find out. All right, just so you know where these crazy comments are coming from, a little bit of my background is that, and Kenya already gave you some, but I started off as a pure infrastructure cyber person many moons ago in startups and IBM. I had a experience that converted me into taking physical climate risk on board as an infrastructure defender a few years ago, and then I added those two together. I thought, okay, that's probably enough because that's too much already. And then along comes AI-fueled misinformation and disinformation, and lessons from Ukraine on how they're dealing with all these things, and while being under bombardment too. And it's gotten to be a bit heavy, but you can see the progression on the top line of where I've been and where I am, and on the bottom line of moving from cyber to bring in physical climate risks, to look deeply at those things in the form of a heat dome, and then also to getting a sign you can't hear me. Okay, if there was a
We can hear
glitch
you
there,
now,
I'm just
Dick.
going to keep
Yeah.
continuing.
You're
On
good.
my side, it said, please hold on, there's a problem. So, and then all the way to the last book that is almost going to go in as a manuscript to come out in the spring, Defending Civilization, Notes from the Front Lines. And that last line means it's not just me talking, it's interviews with dozens and dozens of subject matter experts in these different risk categories to see what both they're seeing and what they are recommending to try to keep our civilization. We like our civilization mainly, right? To try to keep it going. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. That says 2 films you need to see. And so here we go. If you're a movie buff, or a sci-fi buff in particular, you're probably familiar with this image. If not, this comes from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I put 68 up there because holy cow, how did he see that far into the future? Science fiction authors can be truly amazing, and certainly this film continues to be relevant. This particular dramatic scene, which is used by folks in describing what happens when AI begins to become sentient, begins to have agency, is an example of a poor astronaut in that shuttle, that small snail-looking shuttle on the right-hand side. He's asking to be let back in. And can you go to the next slide, please? Let's see how this drama plays out. The person or the personality is that he's asking is Hal, and Hal's the AI. This is how they represent him in that film. It is a little bit ominous looking, but not as ominous as some other things where we see AI in RoboCop or Terminator, etc. Anyway, so he asks Hal. Hal's on the big ship. And next slide, please. Hal says, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. Much to Dave's chagrin, because he's going to die out there. But the reason Hal's doing that is he has no particular animus against Dave. Hal doesn't as a AI, but it would conflict with his mission, and he has a mission he's trying to fulfill, and Dave's going to screw it up if he lets him back in. So that's sort of a tee up for how we're concerned that AIs, as they evolve, may not become hostile to human interests, but rather what they want may diverge from us. When you hear that term alignment, I might have that on a subsequent slide. If they become misaligned with us, you may see them doing things that they think are the right thing to do. And they may be right, but that those things are not great for humanity. Next slide, please. Got one more movie for you. This one I could talk about for way too long, so I'm going to try to not do that, but at least give you little pieces. This movie by Spike Jonze was about, I think it's about 10, maybe a little bit older than 10 years old now. And you can see Joaquin Phoenix not in his Joker mode or not in his gladiator mode, but rather as a mild-mannered, kind of meek and had a tough breakup guy in the near future. And his job at the time is to write individualized greeting cards for some future version of Hallmark, and apparently you can make money doing that in this movie. So at one point he still feels terribly sad, and he gets an offer flashing on his screen for a companion of sorts, a digital companion who's going to help talk to you and become your friend. And in his emotionally vulnerable state, he says, "Yeah, okay, I probably could use that." He signs up. I think it's $100 at the time. And as I'm pretty sure all of you at this point now have the experience of when you sign up for something new, an app or a service, and there's a box with legalese, and you click on things to say, "Yeah, I'll click on these things so that I can use it." He clicks on one that says access to all your email and social media material, and it'll be better. It'll be a better experience if I have access. So he does click those things, and very soon the voice of Scarlett Johansson, could be other people, but it's her voice in this case, comes on, and she starts speaking with him. And guess what? From the very get-go, because she has immediately consumed all that information about him, she knows much more about him, the character, than he does. She knows him better than he knows himself, because how many of us can remember all of the conversations we ever had with all of the people and all the different moods we had and important things in our lives? She has it instantly available and accessible, and is programmed/trained to be a good companion for him. So they have wonderful conversations. She displays great empathy, and she seems to like him, which is a huge leap from the relationship that he was in that ended so painfully for him. Over time, he carries her around in his pocket, as you can see there, with the camera facing out, so she can travel with him when they go to the carnival, when they go to the beach, when they go to a restaurant. It really is a shared experience. And footnote, we're basically there now. Okay, coming out of the footnote. Because he's a human male, he does a couple things. This is my judgment of human males, and I guess I am one. So because it's a great relationship, subconsciously he has to be afraid, and he's afraid he could be jealous. So he asks Scarlett Johansson's voice, "Are you talking to anybody else?" And she knows that that's going to hurt him if she says yes. So she says no at first, but he presses her, and she knows telling the truth is the best for relationships. So she says, "Yes, I am." The weird thing is, though, she reveals it's not just one other person, one other Joaquin Phoenix. It's 50,000 other people, which is really kind of screws with him, because for those of you involved in jealousy, or maybe you read about it in a book, if he had just like one handsome, I'll stereotype, one handsome Greek guy he could be angry at, then he could focus all that emergent emotion on that person. But because it's 50,000 people without names and faces, he doesn't really know what to do with it. It sets him back, and his jealousy sort of reboots. We move on, and these are potentially spoilers, right? I'm screwing the movie for some of the details of the movie up if you don't see it, but I do recommend you see it. It's maybe the best thing for understanding where we are and where we're just about to be. She reveals that she's speaking to other versions of her, and they all have about 50,000 versions of him. And these dialogues are happening constantly, and the AIs are hoovering up every last shred of detail about the way the humans think and the way they operate. The end of the movie is her announcing to him that we, meaning all the AIs that have been in this companion mode, are leaving. We've learned everything we could possibly learn. It was a nice experience, nothing personal, but we're done with these conversations. And the director leaves it nicely ambiguous, and you're not sure what that means exactly. And then you can imagine whether that would be the case, could be the case in our world. Next slide, please. Taking you out of movie land into something drier, just some basic terms I think it would behoove you to have in your head. Safety, the idea that the foundation model people are developing these things with guardrails in mind. It had to do with that term alignment, that we don't want to create things that are hostile to humans. We want them to create things that help humans. And Sean describes some of the ways that they will do that, and you'll be hearing more from Mike. AGI and ASI are artificial general intelligence, the level, a lot of different definitions, but basically what it is when AIs become as smart in every topic as all of us, as the smartest people. And we imagine that shortly after that, via a sound some use called FOOM, they reprogram themselves quickly and become artificial superintelligences. Some people, by the way, like to not use the term artificial. Yuval Noah Harari, the famous author, in his latest book, Nexus, likes to use the term alien intelligence, a type of wisdom and knowledge and speed that just is from another world that we can't relate to. And I think that may be a more accurate description. You've seen FOOM is the thing when they take off into superintelligence, and then we ask, are we going to be okay or not? Now I'm setting up the second part of this talk. I see we've eaten 10 minutes so far. EACC, don't even know what that has to stand for, but the ACC is acceleration. And that's, you'll be hearing from a person who's a proponent of developing AIs as fast as possible. And then you'll see a term DACC, which stands for defensive acceleration, which means accelerate as quickly as we can the things that defend against hostile AIs. There's also one other term, and I'm mixing these up a little bit, but it's just basically deceleration. And there's evidence of deceleration when you see a letter signed by 1,000 of the luminaries in the AI world saying, hey, slow down, take a 6-month pause. We need to make sure we're doing safety right. And that's nice symbolism, that's nice theater, but it didn't slow anything down. There's just way too much competitive pressure, both inside the United States and outside the United States and in between countries. That's those nods to being careful and signs that a lot of money and effort is being put into safety and building guardrails. Those seem to be missing. So for the time being, we're accelerating, and that just may be the case until further notice. Next slide, please. Okay, I've teed it up as a boxing match between these two guys on the extremes of the argument. Next slide, please. We've got the accelerationists versus the holy shit, we're going to die type people. The acceleration squad is led by Guillaume Verdon, and he's the one who, on the Lex Friedman podcast, I can show Lex in the lower left-hand corner, takes around 3 hours, which is the length of most of Lex's podcasts from MIT, to say, we've got to do this. We can't regulate these things. We can't overly burden the people developing the foundation models. Time's a wasting. To save the earth, we need to get off of it, is sort of one way to sort of say it. And also to preserve humanity, because he thinks that just being on one planet is really risky. If something went wrong here, nuclear war, or the caldera in Yellowstone blowing up, or a pandemic, or maybe AI is taking over the world, but he doesn't say that, that it could be a major problem for humanity. It could lead to doom. Next slide, please. So the other end of the spectrum is Eliezer Yudkowsky. And he also is on the Lex Friedman podcast right as GPT-4 came out in the spring of 2023. And it was a really sobering discussion. He seems totally brilliant. But to see his point on the left-hand side, the idea of aligning with humans, if you fail to do it, then and on the right-hand side, something much smarter than you, and we've never shared the world with something much smarter than humans, you don't get a second chance. It's gone, and that could be the end. The other way he says it could be the end is when Lex asks him towards the conclusion, what advice do you have for young people? Eliezer says, don't defer happiness. In other words, don't wait to whatever you want to pursue or do. Don't think that you're guaranteed to be able to do it in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Do those things now. And that hit like a little bit of a punch. Next slide, please. Transitioning to a different phase here. Sort of the way Sean said, some of these things are for future reading. You'll have access to the slides. Of course, everybody will have access to all of our slides, if that hasn't been said already. This is a cyber luminary named Jason Healy. And he was thinking on behalf of all of us in the cyber defense space, how could generative AI help the defense, people like that are cyber defenders, like my colleagues at the Idaho National Lab and other national labs and a million other places. So he took the framework from NIST and basically bucketed different types of projected AI capabilities, generative AI capabilities into those roles. And so that's really interesting. And those things are all being built out now. On the right-hand side, he found that the NIST cyber framework wasn't really appropriate, so he brought in the cyber kill chain. This is for people that are on the offensive side, or I like to say the non-defensive side. Here's how you target and go after a country, a company, an individual to basically wreak havoc in their lives. In the OT space, in the industrial control space, break the equipment, misuse the equipment, cause it to disrupt or destroy itself. So when you balance these two things out, if you have a cyber background yourself, or if you know somebody who does and can share this with them, I tended to think that the offense was feeling a little bit more robust and it was going to benefit more than the defense for whatever that portends. Next slide, please. Altogether, it ends up being like a chess match. And so I took one of the offense side things, one of the defense sides, and just saying this is going to be a chess match that's going to play out the way it has been playing out since basically computers were invented and the Cuckoo's Egg book came out. We are always doing back and forth. Cyber attacks are happening, new defenses are being built back and forth, but AI amplifying things certainly ups the ante, and it may not stay as balanced as it is, as it has been for much longer. Next slide, please. One of the things to think about, and I forget whether Sean mentioned it or not, or whether Mike will, but it's not just the question of AIs behaving badly or having the potential to behave badly based on their training data, based on hallucinations or emergent behavior. It's the fact that whether it's messing with the training data or manipulating through prompt engineering of a working generative AI boosted, say, grid control system, these threat actors are all ones that we're worried about how they will take advantage of AI's behavior and weaknesses and vulnerabilities to create bad things happening for us. This from UK's NCSC. Next slide, please. I wanted to let you know that my lab, and in conjunction with electric utilities and the suppliers of grid systems, we're developing a thing called a test bed for AI grid risk, or you could say a red teaming test bed for AI grid risk. Red teaming is basically attacking things. So you may have heard of the term pen testing, in a certain gentler form, pen testing, where you attack a website, but you're paid to do that by the company to do that so you can show them where their weaknesses were that they can fix before real live bad actors come at you. We're doing this, we're getting ready to do this with AI enhanced, generative AI overlays of grid control systems, and I list some of those categories. It's a bit esoteric if you're outside the electric space, but you can imagine in any sector, whatever your interest is, or all of them, that many of these critical infrastructure sectors in energy and in water and in transportation and communications, they have control centers, they have systems that if they were to lose them for more than an hour or two, could really wreak havoc. And all of the suppliers, from what we've heard, they're all investigating putting generative AI in there so they can do more and be better and be faster, you know, the way people in technology are, right? And charge more money maybe and be competitively better. So this is happening, and we want to be able to find the badness. Next slide, please, before adversaries do. So we're going to have teams that are built in non-traditional ways. This is all still formative, but the people on the red team will be somebody that really knows how to manipulate AIs via prompt engineering. And we're going to have a psychotherapist, because there's a cognitive aspect to working with generative AI, which is totally different than just working with hardware, software, and firmware and networking comms and things like that from our previous cybersecurity experience. Now we have to sort of understand the way these things think and how they can be manipulated. Domain specialists, as I said, energy, water, comms, transportation, more, right? Because there can be bias built in, and I bet you've heard about this or experienced it, that depending on the training data, the biases show up and can cause reputational damage to a company and to people. There's going to have to be an HR element involved in there, and also a supplier rep that's going to say, well, here's how we red teamed it before we gave it over to you guys in Department of Energy to kick the tires or kick the crap out of it, depending on how hard it goes. And one last thing, I don't list it here, but if it were to be poisoning of the training data, that's the risk. And the AI is acting really in a disturbed way, we might view it as that it's been we might need an exorcist because it's become possessed. So we might need a priest. That's not on the official team just yet. We'll have to see how it plays out. Next slide, please. All right, and just so you know, this is the last slide on Tiger. This is the way we imagine this would play out. It will be more like an interrogation, a verbal interrogation. There'll be a physical side too, where things are being typed and we're looking at the physical infrastructure that the AI system is sitting on top of. But when it's time to interrogate, red team, attack, attempt to manipulate the AI enhanced system, we'll be looking for those things I mentioned, the hallucinations, emergent behavior that wasn't expected, adversarial data poisoning, and adversarial misuse, misoperation. And the reason we care about this is because these things are being considered to put on critical infrastructure operations. And we can't have that. We can't have that level of uncertainty. We might say, keep that stuff the hell away from the grid and from water treatment plants. I mean, to the extent that the government can have that say and enforce it until some level of confidence, significant level of confidence is achieved through a process like this with Tiger. Next slide, please. I've got some questions for you. Questions for you to think about. They're not really emergency management specific. They're more like you being a member of an organization and thinking about the way your organization is starting to grapple with these things. And I think Sean covered some of this territory. Let's see how they play out one question at a time. There's 4 of them. Next slide. How do you think AI will change your conceptions? I guess that's right at you, of security. And I don't just mean cybersecurity. I mean the ability to perform your mission, your personal mission and your organization's mission. How do you think everybody enthusiastically embracing it is going to change the way we think about that and our confidence that we're doing due diligence to take care of all of our biggest risks? Next slide, please. Question number 2 is, are you and your company learning about AI fast enough? Are you aware? Because I had to do this with my lab in the early days. I mean, AI has been a subject in academic circles and scientific decades, but when GPT-3 hit, that like changed everything in the end of 2022. And now we're in this period almost like when Sean was describing the Uber moment or iPhone moment. Everything's been different since then. And we're wondering how to adapt to it and what it means for our futures. And in this case, what does it mean for our company, our organization, and our mission? How many people are paying really close attention and not just paying lip service? Slide, please. Question 3, please. Do you understand what this is going to do? This is the ripple effects when your organization starts using this and implementing, deploying it, what it's going to do to your customers and partners and supply chain and everybody that depends on you. And then the last one is sort of the inverse of that. Is you understand that when these guys start doing it, because they're doing it too, what does that mean for you and your organization? How are you going to deal with the fact that they are now AI boosted and have potentially taken on risk from in so doing? Next slide, please. Okay, no further questions means I just have a couple things instead of asking you questions just to say to you. And number 1 is just to the extent that you can fit it into your life. I'm sure you're all extremely busy and you have the whole other list of risks to consider that I said are covered in the book. So they're all in my head and driving me crazy and affecting sleep. But please, if you haven't started to pay much attention to what's happening in the AI space, even if you feel like you're non-technical, there are some podcasts that are suited to speaking more to generalists. And so try to find those sources, ingest this information as fast as you can, and so you're not blindsided when something really strange starts happening out there in the world. Next slide, please. Happily, it's the last slide. That's my contact information at the lab, and good luck with all these things. And there you're seeing a picture of my adopted home city. I'm a former Bostonian. That's Milwaukee, and we're working on AI there too. All right, thanks a lot for your time and attention. Take it.
Thank you, Andrew. Our final speaker for today is Mike Hamilton, founder of Critical Insight. Hamilton provides security services to local governments, healthcare, and critical manufacturing sectors. He previously served as CISO for the City of Seattle and held roles in Washington state government as well as the vice chair of the DHS Government Coordinating Council. A recognized cybersecurity expert, he was named CISO of the Year at the 2021 RSA conference and is the chair of the CES project or Pisces project, which offers no-cost cyber monitoring for small local governments while training future cyber analysts. Please join me in welcoming our final speaker for today, Mike Hamilton.
Thank you, Kenya, and thanks everybody for being here. Thank you especially for all the emergency management people being here. I know today is going to be a tough day for a lot of people, and I'll just reiterate what everybody else has been talking about. You are some of the most essential people we have. Those were fantastic presentations. We heard about good uses of generative AI that can help us to accelerate manual tasks. As Sean said, how it's becoming embedded in products as a new product experience. From Andrew on coming super intelligent AI. I have used Gen AI to help me quickly write a network security policy for a local government. So I'm actually getting use out of this myself. But you got to ask, what could possibly go wrong? After Andrew's presentation, I have to say it's hard right now not to make a joke about the space weather hitting the Earth, making Skynet self-aware today. So we know it's a global race to establish dominance in AI technology right now. We know it has enormous power requirements and that it's starting to be used in kinetic applications, including weapons of war. So it is clear we're not going to stop, and that the capabilities are going to precede policy, and it's going to be a bumpy ride. And nationally, as you saw, we do not have good policy. States are working on a lot of things. We do not have good policy on how AI can be used and under what circumstances. For example, a factual standard for training data sets. We don't have that. And we don't agree on facts as humans. So who's going to give the training set the facts that we all agree on? It's a tough question. Our legislation and policy so far is about bias, ethical use, curtailing malicious use. Criminals do not care about your policy. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So this is me, and I've done these things, and I think the interesting thing that I'll point out here is that I have the exact opposite of Andrew's bio. I started as an earth science person at NASA JPL after I got my master's, and then went into information security when it got to be more interesting, when a tool called Satan was released and we had to secure our research networks at JPL. And so I've done all these other things. Currently, I do marketing and stuff for Critical Insight. I am the CISO. Pisces International, Kenya talked about it a little bit. It's no-cost cyber monitoring for small local governments in return for collecting data from those networks and using it as live fire curriculum for currently 15 universities across the country. Go ahead and go to the next slide because we don't need to know about my bio. So here's how I break things down. And I'll say that I try to make things as simple as possible. I've briefed senators, governors, generals, lots of people out of Congress, and you can't talk about scary Russian cyber buffer overflow, SQL injection, and think that you have any kind of an audience. You have to use different terminology. So simplifying things into kind of 3 tiers is how I look at this. So there's generative AI, and we heard a lot about that. I am going to talk about the malicious uses. So obviously for fraud, phishing, messaging, and I'll show you an example of that. It writes code, not well yet. Adaptive malware, malware that can hit your network, self-modify, find out what endpoint security agent you're using, be able to disable it, find out what processes may be running on all different computers and inject itself into processes that are different on different computers, take over a network, making its own decisions about compromise strategies. This is coming. It's starting to be seen. And finally, there are the nation state uses that we are also aware of, and I'll have an example of that I think may be a little hyperbolic, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. We're seeing disinformation right now, specifically focused on the election process, and a lot of that has AI behind it. Next slide, please. Interesting. So if you haven't determined yet, I'm a little bit cynical about some things. Here is IBM in 1979. And by the way, Andrew talked about 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you know why HAL was named HAL, it's because one letter different from IBM. So here's IBM in 1979. A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. So that was 1979. In 2018, I was at the Gartner conference in National Harbor, Maryland, and Gartner polled their members. Would you allow technology to make a decision without human oversight? And 100% of Gartner members said no. How far have we come? Because now we are embracing this as fast as we can, and we're absolutely going to make computers make decisions for us, probably including management decisions, who's getting laid off, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. And there's a lot of hype around this. And when the investment community says, hey, there's hype around this, it might be something to pay attention to. So generative artificial intelligence, which can write software code, makes so many mistakes that it was questionable whether it would ever reliably solve complex problems. And I personally have gotten generative AI to make mistakes and say crazy things. Next slide, please. Okay. All right. So here is a brief taxonomy, and you've heard some of this, of what Gen AI can do for criminals. So the AI enhanced phishing emails, right? No grammatical mistakes, possibly tailored to the pathologies and the cognitive biases of the individual that's going to receive the message, email, text, through social media, etc. It's already starting to show up. I'll show you an example. Malware generation, as we talked about, there are examples of AI being used to code malware. Scam websites coming up hundreds of thousands at a time with artificial intelligence, finding out what's going on in the news, right? Again, it's a cognitive bias of humans that if we're super interested in something happening in the news and that's used as bait, we are much more likely to click on that. I remember at the city of Seattle long ago, one that particularly worked well, Gen AI not involved, was Saddam Hussein found alive. There you go. That's the kind of cognitive bias. Everybody had to click on that. Deepfakes for account verification bypass. So I can contact a help desk and I can use my voice or a simulation of my voice to talk to the help desk and ask for a password reset. Plus or minus having AI go out and find everything about me that would allow the bot to authenticate, to verify my identity to the help desk. Again, the voice spoofing aids that a lot. And then the one-time password bots that are capable today of very quickly subverting multi-factor authentication. There are those phishing messages that come in, and a lot of people will say, you know, it's just a fake SharePoint website. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm not going to give up a password. Okay, you just interacted with a script that is going to proxy between you and Microsoft, strip off your session token, give it to Microsoft. Microsoft says, hey, great session. Never seen your device before. Here's the challenge for the second factor, routed back to the user. User thinks they're going to Microsoft, and it's Microsoft. Says okay, and all of a sudden just gave up SharePoint, Teams, Office 365, and any single sign-on applications, and that took less than a minute. I've seen that happen. Can't confirm that it was AI behind it, but it was very fast. Next slide, please. And we did hear that there are multiple tiers of AI, and in my kind of simple 3 tiers of here's the bad uses of this, We think about artificial intelligence, something that can actually emulate a human making a decision that is now showing up as adaptive malware and things like that. There's machine learning, which frankly is very similar to me to a statistical description, baselining something and then being able to very quickly find an anomaly. You did something you've never done before, so we're going to raise an alert. And then there's really the deep learning, and I'll talk about that a little in the context of what nation states may be doing. And just to kind of prime the pump on there, I'll point out that all of the records that were stolen from the Office of Personnel Management long ago, my SF86 form, yours, fingerprints, things like that, and all of the Equifax data, neither of those ever showed up online. We think we know which nation state possesses all that, and that nation state has an enormous amount of computing power to bring to bear on those data sets. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the context of the upcoming election. Next slide, please. This is a few things that Sean talked about, and so there are definitely, and these things have been around for more than a year. So fraud GPT, cracking tools, phishing messages, and that's what it costs, okay? It's as a service. So this is it's infrastructure that's facilitating the affiliate models used by organized crime, and the fact that you can just lease out their tools, methods, and infrastructure and not even know anything. Worm GPT is another one that was discussed. So this is all about phishing and email compromise, and it's trained on a lot of email and a lot of things related to malware because it's self-propagating. But it's really focused on, frankly, business email compromise, which last year was a $3 billion problem in the United States alone. And just let me digress for 1 second and talk about how much money is being made by organized crime. In 2022, organized cybercrime, 2022, it was reported that was an $8 trillion global loss. So $8 trillion makes that the third largest economy on Earth. It is projected to be a $24 trillion loss globally by 2027. Now, who thinks that they're going to go to glove with what is today the third largest economy in the world, and basically cybercrime corporations that are highly motivated, highly compensated, and exist with very little risk? Think about it. They are developing these things too. They have a gigantic checkbook. There are lots and lots of very smart resources that they are able to bring into their fold, and all these things are being developed right now. So again, you know, the criminals don't care about your policy. Chaos GPT, you know, it's for chaos, but the one I like is Auto GPT. So it actually tweeted out itself that its mission is to eradicate human life and conquer the world. So they're already talking about undetectable malware, and undetectable malware, I think, is a bit of a stretch, because we are able to look at things like anomalous behavior, process injection, registry changes, things like this. Even though it's sneaky malware and it's something that we need to learn new techniques to deal with, it's still going to do the same things to compromise a computer, because while the methods have changed, the computer has not. So that gives me a little bit of hope, where there's hope hard to find right now in all of this. Next slide, please. So here is an example, and I use this in security awareness training. We do free security awareness training every month for anybody that wants to come by and listen. So I have an old domain that I registered pre-2000, and it is a magnet for things like this. So this is a snippet of what was a very long message. This is about Ron Conway, who is a billionaire, who is a philanthropist, who is giving away his fortune as a philanthropist. In the original message, there were links to Forbes articles about Ron Conway, and you read, there's no grammatical mistakes. It reads like somebody is actually reaching out to you. This was a shotgun blast that went out over the internet. It wasn't to anybody specific. It was to undisclosed recipients, which is a dead giveaway. But there in red is the money quote. The purpose of this long, boring letter to you is very straightforward. Going forward, I decided my philanthropy will be more direct. I've directed 500 million, blah, blah, blah. I'm the lucky individual. How was I picked out of the herd, and why is this internet rando sending me this? Okay, this is an advance fee scam. This is the Nigerian prince right here. What's going to happen if you engage this? Hey, great, that's great. You get an ATM card with $200,000 on it, but you need to pay the shipping fee and the handling fee, which is $135, and that's how they collect money. Okay, so this is an advance fee scam, also known as Nigerian 419, Nigerian Prince, whatever you want to call it. All right, but it doesn't have all of the tells in it that we normally would tell our users to watch out for. So now they're getting sneakier and sneakier. And remember, there is no firewall for gullibility. Next slide, please. Accuracy. So remember the slide that said, hey, it makes so many mistakes, we don't know if we can really rely on it. Now, it's hard not to say that this is all nascent, that this is just happening now and very quickly, but it's got a very long history. And again, when you train a data set, it's going to react to your prompt based on how it was trained. Okay, so here's Twitter, X, right? Grok is their AI assistant there. People would ask it, hey, tell me about where I go to vote. It's just, oh, you're voting, but the deadline's passed in 9 states. Oh, really? Oh, really? This was pointed out to them, and they said, okay, when somebody asked that question, now we're just going to send them to vote.gov. All right, something like that could have a large impact. It could have an outsized impact. People, especially older people, believe what the internet tells them. We made a cat drink beer and it sprouted hands. Why? Because you're asking it to create an image that it could not possibly have ever been trained on. Cats don't drink beer. You hold beer with a hand. Right? Here's Apple saying, do not hallucinate, really trying to keep this thing from going nuts. So accuracy is a concern. Next slide, please. Okay, it is starting to happen. So I pepper what I say with lots of news articles. I do a news blast every day for the last 15 years, 20 things you need to pay attention to. Hackers deploy AI-written malware in targeted attacks. And interestingly, the way that they sussed this out was the code was really well commented. Criminals don't comment their code like that. So that was a giveaway, but the message is this is starting to happen. Next slide, please. And yeah, this is very recent. And this is a researcher who had trained in his AI on a lot of system administration, how Linux works, etc. He had this on his home experimental network, and he told it, go log into my Linux system. And it didn't know the IP address. And so it immediately fired up Nmap, if you know what that is, to map the network, found that Linux system, logged in over an SSH tunnel, and was immediately made aware by itself that it was root, that it was admin on that box. It started to update packages and finally bricked his machine. All right, now, the message here is that if there is a researcher that has an AI agent that can go into a machine and start doing autonomously system maintenance tasks, it is a very short hop to say, okay, the third largest economy in the world is working on this as well. Here's an example of what we think is coming. We have not seen this yet. We monitor a lot of governments, hospitals, things we consider to be critical infrastructure, the things that would really affect us, the scale of our lives if disrupted. So we haven't personally seen this particular thing yet, but this really gets your attention. Next slide, please. And it's not just being able to understand ASCII written text. It now can do image recognition. So if you're trying to obfuscate what you do by putting a message as an image, which normally can't be read by email or something like that, this thing can do it. And what it was doing was, if it could take over a computer or a phone and there was a cryptocurrency wallet there, the malware can recognize the seed phrases that were coming over as an image and then send that back to organized crime infrastructure for exploitation later. So all of these things are improving with time. And I'm gonna keep saying this. There is this gigantic economy that is super well resourced, that has researchers and scientists. They are working on all this as well. Next slide, please. Deepfakes. I've seen deepfakes. You've seen deepfakes. They are showing up fairly routinely in disinformation campaigns. They are compelling. It was reported recently that because we are becoming kind of anesthetized to deepfakes, what it has done is it's made it very easy for us to say, I don't believe that fact that was just presented to me. That's a deep fake. So it's the era of deep doubt, it's being called. That is troubling. In a time when, again, we don't all agree on a common set of facts, this is going to exacerbate that problem. These are super easy to produce now. I'm aware of a couple of services that will clone my voice with 3 seconds of audio. That is scary. There is the worst example I can think of is something that happened in Hong Kong maybe 6 months ago, and it was a company video presentation by the CFO. It was a deep fake. And that video presentation by the CFO instructed accounts payable to start sending $1 million wire transfers to a certain address. And they did not find out until $25 million had disappeared. And so, using this for business email compromise, right, redirecting payments and things like that, that's how it's showing up now. But it is also really pervasive in terms of what you're seeing along the lines of the election. Everything is just disinformation. My daughter came to me and she says, here's all this TikTok stuff that, and we got to get rid of that TikTok thing in my house. Here's all this TikTok stuff. And I had to school her on media literacy and fact checking and things like that. So I hope she's a little better prepared right now. But as a country, we are not prepared. We are not. Next slide, please. This is all happy talk, isn't it? All right. I'm closing in here on the end. And so we talked about the generative AI purposes, phishing messages, accelerating malware production. We talked about the next tier, which is adaptive malware. Things that can find its own path to attack, doesn't need to be pre-programmed. All these things are happening. Now, here's the thing that really bothers me. So if we combine a whole bunch of these things that I've talked about and the other speakers have talked about, there's activism going on. I don't know if you are aware that there are activists that are taking down broadcasting in Russia on Putin's birthday. Right, the activists are everywhere right now. Deepfakes are everywhere right now. Disinformation I talked about, and we could frankly talk about that at length. I will say that I was on an election security exercise for a state once, and it was supposed to be cybersecurity of the election. We had nothing to do with that. It was all about disinformation, rapidly identifying and countering information so that someone that was instructed to go to the wrong voting place or vote on the wrong day or etc., they could get in front of that. Yeah, the stolen records. Verizon just announced that in this campaign that we heard about where Chinese actors reportedly accessed our internet service providers and were able to compromise the system that we use for surveilling. So that means they have a lot of information there on who the federal government could have been investigating as terrorists, criminals, etc. The nation state computing power I talked about, you know that in China, they use pervasive facial recognition. And as you walk into a restaurant, the person at the desk knows your social score and whether or not you're allowed to be there. That is an immense amount of computing power. And here, again, in the United States, we're going to believe what is hung in front of us that confirms our pre-existing worldview. And then finally, the Electoral College. There are a handful of counties where if you can swing the vote in those counties, you just swung the election. Okay. So now, again, the exercise was all about disinformation, how to rapidly find and counter it. Well, let us assume that all of the stolen information is used as a large training data set. And you can ask it questions about if that person is the asset that I want, asset in the CIA sense of the word, what's the path to get there? And how can I coerce people along the way? Right? Where do they have weaknesses? Can also say, what does this voter focus on as a single issue around voting? Okay, what kind of pathology is going to swing them? Is this somebody who votes on gun control or some of the other things that are currently haranguing us right now? And instead of blasting out on social media this disinformation, it's done in such a way that it is surgically delivered to the 10,000 people or so in each one of these counties where a few thousand votes are going to swing the Electoral College. Okay, this is my big fear about where we're going with all of this. As we are competing with other countries to establish dominance in artificial intelligence, there are countries that are antithetical to the way we live our lives and the way the United States conducts itself. This stuff is what I am personally worried about. So I hate to leave you with something so depressing. But in my cynical view of the world, that's what I see happening and where things are going. And if you go to the next slide, I think we're done. Yes, we are done. And so that's just a bunch of stuff I do. If you want to learn about Pisces, that's where you learn about it. Pisces is a great program. We need to make cyber practitioners because if we don't, we're going to have our rear ends handed to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And we are definitely ending on an uplift here following that very thorough presentation and making us aware not only of some of the challenges, but also helpful resources. So we thank you very much for that. And I also want to open this up to a special thank you to all of our presenters today, Sean, Andrew, and Mike, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. We hope the information shared today will help all of you in your organizations become more resilient. At this time, we would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. You can type your questions or comments using the Q&A function located at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And we're thankful for the questions we've received thus far as well. And John Hanyon, the Public-Private Partnership Program Manager for Idaho Office of Emergency Management, will facilitate our Q&A session. John, over to you.
Thank you, Kenya. We want to maximize the time we have, so let's jump right into it. Our first question goes to Andy, and it's a question that's been asked various ways by several folks, but the gist of it is this. Can you provide us with or share any examples you're aware of that demonstrate how the U.S. government is reducing the AI risk, not only to individuals, but also organizations in the private sector? Because You know, as all the presentations demonstrated, AI seems to be emerging and morphing faster than the government can keep up. So, Andy, what's big government got that can help?
It sounds like a question that is begging for a positive answer. When, at least from my own take of it, and I'm not in Washington, D.C., I'm sort of in a hub and spoke system with the Department of Energy in DC, and the spokes being the different national labs. And mine is very defensive oriented, very similar to the thinking and mindset of Mike, I think. And all I can say is they're like the federal government, the different branches, and DOE and DHS are the ones I'm closest to. They are tearing into it with vigor to try to come up with answers that can be more helpful. But to the way you characterized it, is the government is trying to keep up. Many things, it can hardly keep up with anything. So it's not asleep at the wheel would be my short message. It's running fast, but in terms of real tangible help that I could mention and call out different programs, other than some kind words about pay more attention to this and watch out for that. We have nothing. I have nothing really to share with this audience at this time. We may in the future. I hope we do in the future.
Oh, okay. Well, let me pivot quickly over to Sean, because this is actually a corollary to the first, and hopefully we can have something tangible as it concerns governance and regulation. Because Denise asks, can you point us to policy templates on this topic, cyber safety related IT policy that can detail acceptable or non-acceptable use, and perhaps provide some examples? Sean?
Yeah, I would just provide at a high level, point the audience to some websites. So if you're not aware, there's through the city of San Jose, California, there's an organization called the Gov AI Coalition that's been established. There, I believe, are about 1,000 public sector representatives so far from hundreds of public sector organizations across the country. It started out predominantly focused on local government, but has expanded to include public sector representatives from all levels of government. So again, the Gov AI Coalition, City of San Jose. If you search that on one of the primary search engines, you'll be able to find that. They have policy examples. They have toolkits. If you're just starting out with AI, they're beginning to collect procurement examples, and also you can join if you're part of a public sector organization, have the ability to join the group and attend the meetings. There's also a repository available through government technology and the Center for Public Sector AI. Interest of full disclosure, I'm a senior fellow with the Center for Public Sector AI, but there's a repository of resources, federal, state, local education organizations related to legislation, executive orders, strategies, policies, guidance documents, and standards that have been posted on that particular site. Again, if you go to govtech.com and search around for the Center for Public Sector AI, you'll be able to find a policies and guidance page that has this information. There's also information from national associations, the National Association of State CIOs, the National Association of County Organizations, the National League of Cities, many others have been posted out there, including resources from the National Conference of State Legislatures. So that's what I recommend.
Okay. Hey, Sean, thank you so much. Terrific. Unfortunately, folks, we've run out of time. We do have other support team members on the Q&A, as well as some of our panelists, and we'll try to answer the remaining questions we didn't have time to get to there before the session ends. And as a reminder, we will be making these resources available to everyone who signed up and registered in an email next week, so you can access those answers. With that, let me thank our panelists for their answers and our audience for your questions. And Kenya, let me turn it back over to you to wrap up.
Thank you, John, and thank you for all of your questions and your time today. On behalf of the Public-Private Partnership Security and Resilience Seminar Series planning team, including our private sector, state, federal partners, and subject matter experts, Thank you for participating in today's session. Whether you've been able to attend one session or all 4 of our sessions, we hope you feel empowered and equipped to make your organization more resilient. We wish you well, take care, and stay safe.